What is up, everybody? Solomon here. First and foremost, I wanted to give a gigantic thank you to everybody that has appreciated this YouTube channel since its inception, which was back in 2020, interestingly enough, and I've taken multiple breaks. Started this back up really kind of in that late August time frame. My goal internally for myself was to try to hit 50,000 subscribers on this channel. I think I had about 28,000 or 29,000 or something like that in late August by the end of the year. And I hit it, right at the very, very beginning of this year. And, it's not been easy trying to find information, present information that doesn't necessarily always come across as being the most hypey information, not doing clickbait titles, talking about price action and speculation, because obviously I'm not a financial advisor. Every single person in this space is a speculator, but what's interesting to me is that you see a lot of the accounts out there that are certainly just speculating. They have a lot of power in this space to the point where, if they're putting price valuations on certain things, a lot of people follow that type of stuff. I've tried to stay away from that as much as possible. I'm certainly probably guilty for it to some extent. During my 3 or 4 years, as far as quote unquote, and I hate the term, but the influencer type thing. But I appreciate every single one of you that are subscribing to this channel, all my patrons that are subscribing to me. It really, really does help, especially given all the things that have happened at home for me over the past year and a half, and trying to kind of make the pivot to doing this full time. It's certainly appreciated, and I'm very, very humbled. Back to presenting real information, though. Digital Pound Foundation. Now, if you're not aware, Digital Pound Foundation is essentially Quant, Ripple, Electroneum, associate members including CGI and Avalanche, and they put out this tweet today. Ripple, which is a founding member of the Digital Pound Foundation, released a new report, which is the future of CBDCs. Now, countless times in this space, we talk about, you can actually kind of go to the Digital Pound Foundation's website here. You can see Billion Group, CGI, Electroneum, Ripple, Quant, associate members including Accenture and Avalanche. A lot of times in this space, and I've been in multiple conversations where people are asking me about what the utility of digital assets are, and I think that first and foremost, really some of the main utility is what can potentially interface and interoperate with a lot of the pain points that deal in the traditional systems that currently exist in the financial sector. Certainly at inception, those utility mechanisms that digital assets, in my opinion, will solve, or at least the interoperability and DLT will solve, is kind of the payments infrastructure, the back end, the overhead, all of these different things, the lost payments, the messaging faults, everything that we're seeing across the board. Now, if you're not aware, SWIFT has been around since the early 70s. That has essentially been the banking standard, period. Ever since that we've detached from the gold standard, essentially SWIFT took over. Whenever you use your debit card or credit card at a facility, no matter it be a restaurant or a gas station, whatever, there are so many back-end things that occur before that actual payment turns into a settlement, which enables the institutions to kind of justify the liabilities and to kind of, actually settle those payment transactions. So this is very interesting to me, though. I'm not going to read this verbatim. Obviously, it's 13 pages. The future of CBDCs, why all central banks must take action. There's some really key facts in here that I think are very interesting. One is what we see with what's going on with China, which is essentially the People's Bank of China rolling out the digital yuan in February of 2022. At least that's a target date. And in my opinion, once we see one of the powerhouse nations globally, and China is certainly one of those, roll out a digital currency from a central bank digital currency standpoint, it is game over, to the point where dominoes have already begun falling regardless, but it's game over as far as all of these other nations need to catch up, especially some of the larger powerhouses that be. 1.7 billion unbanked adults across the world, meaning, it may not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but we talk about some of these exotic nations and some of the workers that are living in these nations that don't have access into things that are going to empower themselves or their families. Now, we can argue where this eventually ends up tying everybody into the same system as a negative, and I certainly agree with that. But I do think that there's quite a few positives as far as making these same initiatives from the traditional, or not traditional, but the updated banking system available to these individuals is going to be very, very, very powerful. And we're going to see a lot of people empowering themselves and taking that capitalist movement upon themselves to be able to really make a difference for themselves and their families. Another thing is we see Facebook's announcement of plans to create its digital currency, which essentially has an outreach of 2.4 billion people. So that's a lot of people, essentially about a third of the populace, right? So I'm not going to read through this entire thing. What I did want to do is kind of showcase where a lot of these nations are at. So I will post this for you guys because I think this is very valuable. If you talk to your friends and family about where cryptocurrency and digital assets are going, a lot of the time it's a lot of speculation saying it's a scam. The technology it's a Ponzi. It is what it is. There's a lot of scams certainly in cryptocurrency, but the technology and digital assets, the ones that actually have utility, are going to certainly change the world. Just like the internet changed the world for information, digital assets will change the world from an informational standpoint, but interoperate with value mechanisms. So it's almost like bridging the gap between information and value as well. Legend within this, creating CBDC prototypes. We can see advanced research stage and early research stage, and you can kind of gauge the whole thing across the board here. I think that I saw something like, what was it, 3/4 or 80% of banks, 80% of central banks are actively exploring central bank digital currencies. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. Every central bank at some point operates within a central bank digital currency. Which digital assets can solve pain points that aren't necessarily solved by domestic CBDCs or corresponding relationships between countries with it from a digital asset standpoint are going to be what's really interesting to me. We can see some quotes in here as well. If central bank digital currencies are cheaper, faster, more secure for users, we should explore it. If it's going to contribute to better monetary sovereignty, better autonomy, we should explore it. If it's going to facilitate cross-border payments, we should explore it. This isn't just some run-of-the-mill type of person saying something like this. This is Christine Lagarde. Christine Lagarde was previously the head of the International Monetary Fund, now the head of the president, or now the president of the European Central Bank. Obviously, probably top 5 financial institutions globally. I wanted to get back into the very bottom of this, though, because this is what's interesting to me. And this is neutral bridge currencies. Now, what Ripple does here is they essentially provide 3 keys to overcoming every central bank digital currency challenge. The first is interoperability, talking about interoperability with the current system, interoperability with other systems, public and private partnerships, talking about building out the rails, talking about making sure that those rails are liquid, talking about making sure that there's market makers within those rails, talking about that there's technology providers and an aggregation of technology within those rails as well, and neutral bridge currencies. Now, neutral bridge currencies is what I want to focus on right now, and it's a very interesting little think piece that Ripple puts out. And this kind of deals on a lot of the questions that we consistently hear and what are the real use cases of digital assets. Okay, so I will take it from a central bank digital currency standpoint. While interoperability will support the direct exchange of a central bank digital currency in domestic transactions, many of the same old issues with cross-border transactions will remain. Now, I would argue within this that you may see some interoperability mechanisms within not just domestically, but cross-borders as well. But really, to me, and what they kind of left out here, and I'll extrapolate back into this a little bit, is the Christine Lagarde quote. And that Christine Lagarde quote previously talks about facilitating cross-border payments, right? But it talks about, they left out a quote, or a portion of that quote within the Ripple document, which are very laborious in quite a few corners of our big world, which means that those exotic corridors, maybe they aren't liquid enough. Maybe there's multiple different connectivity issues within those exotic corridors. And now this quote was directly taken into the Ripple speech, but was directly left out of that Ripple speech, at least that excerpt from this quote. So I do think that exotic corridors certainly will need that functionality of a neutral bridge currency. Okay, let me get back into it. Sorry. Many of the same old issues with cross-border transactions will remain. In particular, supporting immediate real-time foreign exchanges as opposed to the current. Now, this is crazy. If you are not aware of this, maybe your friends and family are not aware of this, 3 to 5 day process. It takes 3 to 5 days to send money across borders right now, ladies and gentlemen, which is absolutely insane. When I can send you a text message or an email, and you will get that text message or that email in literally seconds for money to be sent and settled across borders. Imagine all of the migrant workers working in different countries across the world. Imagine the fact that, number one, it's going to take them 3 to 5 days. And a lot of these migrant workers are probably working in these countries to be able to send money home to their families. Not all of them, but many of them. Not only knowing, they don't even know how much money is going to get there in the back end, because a lot of the times you don't even know what the fees are going to be. It's absolutely asinine, and obviously it's going to change. Common sense tells us that that's going to change. 3 to 5 day process, which likely still require the need for pre-funded currency accounts. Now, by pre-funded currency accounts, if you're dealing just in banking institutions, they're talking about Nostro and Vostro. So they're talking about these banking institutions, central banks, banks across the globe, all of the central banks, trapping their own liquidity to make sure that when messages are received, they can actually reciprocate payment. Now, we do see through SWIFT that there's instant settlement, but that's still through pre-funded accounts and promissory notes. It's all about the unlocking of liquidity, in my opinion, as well, because we do know that there is going to be a liquidity crisis. Okay, so like any commercial bank or global business, central banks will want to avoid the increased cost and risk associated with this familiar liquidity issue. They would also welcome the ability to free up capital that could be generating value elsewhere and skews the financial system in favor of the most liquid currencies. Typically, those are the most powerful nations. So they're talking about probably SDRs in this stance here. SDRs are special drawing rights. Obviously, the basket of the most powerful currencies, essentially the basket that is held and maintained by the International Monetary Fund for crisis events and all sorts of different things. A neutral bridge asset. Now, this is one thing that we do see that XRP could provide that use case for. A neutral bridge asset can support healthy alternative liquid markets that will allow for frictionless and cost-effective value movement between various central bank digital currencies in real time. Not only for frictionless and effective value movement, but imagine the amount of liquidity and capital that would be unlocked from central banks that is currently trapped. Arguably, those numbers are anywhere between $7 and $17 trillion, and I've seen upwards of like $23, $24, $25 trillion that can be utilized for other mechanisms for their communities or their economies or whatever it may be. That's a lot of money. I mean, the whole national debt in the U.S. is what right now? And I haven't looked because I'm sick of looking at it. It's like $27 trillion. I'm sure it's more than that now. And that's just the U.S. But unlocking that trapped liquidity and using that trapped liquidity for other mechanisms of empowerment, maybe within an economy or whatever else, is going to be gigantic. To enable a truly efficient global market, a bridge currency must be specifically optimized for payments and support the same speed, scalability, low cost, and security that central bank digital currencies will provide. One example, now again, it's just an example of a neutral bridge, is the digital asset XRP, which can be utilized to bridge two different currencies quickly and efficiently. By underpinning an effective alternative liquidity market, neutral bridge currencies are the final piece of the interoperability puzzle that will drive the success of central bank digital currencies as a global tool for exchanging value. And I certainly agree with that. We've seen, Lagarde's standpoint here, not just about kind of exploring cross-border settlement mechanisms with digital assets, but why? And the why is what's very important. And the why is because it's very, very laborious in quite a few corners of the world. And I interpret that as kind of the exotic corridors that, at least in my opinion, where I see something like XRP, certainly interoperating with and interfacing with for that neutral bridge mechanism at inception. Huge shout out to Flare community, by the way. This Flare community does an insane amount of work. I think best FTCO or FTSO is he's a part of this as well. Showcasing Flare Network's official YouTube. So what I did want to say is that it may make sense for you guys to go and follow Flare Network's official YouTube. I will post this link as well so you guys can follow. Last but not least, This is pretty cool, and I almost feel like I need to do like a hype video over top of it. If the volume is shitty on here, I really apologize. But on XRP.com. Now, this is initially this was an XRPL Punks initiative. I'm all for all the initiatives being built out on the XRPL. I've personally had an opportunity to meet with Kai and Bastion from XRPL Punks. They never gave me anything. I'm not an affiliate of them. I'm not paid by them to promote this, but they are value creators within this space, in my opinion. On XRP.com, I think is going to be a great tool, one of many tools, and I would like to see more tools developed where the XRP community can potentially have a fighting shot at maybe vetting out some projects. And this DEX is going to kind of aid in that fighting chance for the XRP community as a whole, where you're going to see potentially docs projects, or at least docs 2 on XRP, and participate within their decentralized exchange. And I've spoken with these guys multiple times. They have some really killer ideas. I'm excited to share them in the future, because I don't think it stops with a decentralized exchange or a platform with data and price and information aggregation or just NFTs. I think that these guys are builders. I know that these guys are builders, and I'm willing to support builders builders that are transparent with me in the community in any way that I can possibly support them. So if the volume is shitty on here, I apologize, but I did want to share this. I almost want to at some point do a really crazy hype video over top of this, because they're fun, even though they're hype ones, and I hope you guys understand that those ones are just for fun. But again, I will share this with you for the end of this video. I absolutely love every single one of you guys, and thank you guys for all the support. We're going to be digging into maybe some different layer ones here in the near future on this YouTube. I know that a lot of the times it's just Ripple and XRP native. I try to talk about HBAR and Quant and utility assets as well. I'm just very excited about XRP, and I'll continue to be excited about XRP. And I hope you guys enjoy this. If it's shitty, turn it off, but I definitely recommend following out on XRP on Twitter and checking out what they're doing with this DEX, which I believe goes live on the 12th. So let's watch this video, and I love you guys.